Hi everyone, we're back here again with Gershon, who shared with us previously about his story on love and loss. And today we have with us Joyce, who is a registered counsellor with the Singapore Association for Counselling, as well as a clinical supervisor. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about therapy, and we've heard Gershon's story, and something that has become much more prevalent during this time of the pandemic, and that is our mental health, right? So Joyce, why don't you share with us actually how can we take care of our own mental health?
I think basically there's many ways that we can take care of our mental health. But if I were to just narrow it down, I will look at two things that I think is really very important to do. Firstly is definitely to keep yourself positive, right? So in general, if you are going to be negative, you always entertain negative thoughts, what happens is that it will cause you to slip into depression, it will cause you to feel very lousy about yourself. But of course, just keeping positive, is not going to be so simple. A lot of times we tell people, just keep positive, you will be fine. But actually, it is not healthy to just shut off your emotions. When you are feeling low, when you're feeling down, it is not good to just shut it off. So it is also important to do the second thing besides really keeping positive, that is to talk to someone. So as you actually share with someone, you are looking at having someone to process together with you what is really going on, what you are feeling. So I think these are the most important two crucial things that I would say.
But what are some signs that we should look out for, whether it's in our friends or family or even ourselves, to know that, hey, a warning sign that says, hey, you're actually struggling emotionally, mentally?
Yeah, I guess everyone is quite different. So someone may say that when they are, struggling with mental health, they might be, losing their appetite. For others, it could be that they are not able to sleep. So everybody is quite different. So if there will be some signs that I would like to highlight, it will be mainly things like losing appetite, or sometimes even eating more than usually.
Eating too much.
Yes, eating too much.
Yeah,
Or not being able to sleep. Yeah. You kind of like not able to go by your day to day kind of work. So you struggle, getting up in the morning to work. You struggle at night because you cannot get to bed and stuff like that. So if you have signs like that, then it's time to kind of like pay attention to it. Yeah.
Actually, Gershon, those were some of the signs that you shared previously, But when do we cross into that line of saying, hey, I think I need more than just talking to my friend, I need to seek professional help?
If you are already not being able to operate day to day, yeah. So once you pick that as a sign, it is time for you to be courageous, to really seek professional help, to seek, to talk to someone, to ask them if there's something that you need to do. I think that will be one of the more crucial ones.
Is there a timeline to it, like for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 months?
Generally, my guide is 2 weeks. If every day you're feeling that way, then it's actually not too healthy.
Gershon, there was something that you mentioned also. You
Yeah.
felt like it was prolonged.
Yes.
That's why you went to seek
Exactly,
help.
yeah. I think for me, a lot of the signs that Joyce mentioned, I had it, right? I couldn't sleep at night because I keep rethinking about the past. On most days I was sleeping at 3 a.m., some days 5 a.m., some days I cannot sleep the whole day. And then because I cannot sleep, then I cannot wake up. I cannot wake up, I cannot focus on my work. I was numb to a lot of things, right? And at some point I knew I couldn't function, right? And that was something, at the 12-month mark, I also told my boss that I really wanted to be fully functional at work. I mean, I cannot keep just working part-time, right? And so I think that really was a catalyst for me to seek help. And then beyond that, I was also very encouraged by, I think, friends and leaders that I look up to, celebrities, right? Talking a lot more about mental health. Right? And that was the point where I really decided that, I need clinical intervention, I needed professional help, really to get me back on track. Because I think I've done a lot of things, which I shared in the interview previously, and that got me back from ground zero to maybe 80 upon 100. But there were definitely loose ends that I felt like I needed to tie up, and despite doing all that I have done, I couldn't, right? So perhaps something more structural, perhaps something within a framework to help me, that would be, I think, more beneficial, which is why I started, seeing a therapist also.
But was it a difficult decision for you to make, to go and see a
Yeah,
therapist?
yeah, for sure. there are a lot of inertia, right? Once I started doing it, I think firstly, the lack of information was definitely one. I didn't know where to go. Do I go check myself into IMH, right? That seemed a bit extreme, but of course, as I searched, then I realized there are other avenues. NUH psychiatry ward, there are family service centers, there are private counselling centers. So it's kind of like a scale. Then secondly, I thought I could deal with it myself. I mean, I've been a cell group leader for like 17, 18 years, right? So I thought I could just self-help all the way. But I also knew that my symptoms were prolonged, and therefore I probably needed someone to walk alongside me to get me back on track. There was also the point of I was kind of scared, to be honest, to revisit the pain, because it's like meeting a stranger and then telling him or her all over again, right, from day one what happened, and not just what happened, but the emotions, right, that were there when the things happened, and it was really painful, right? So I was a bit scared to be vulnerable to a stranger. What are other things? Yeah, I think there are two more things. I think this was the most important one. I heard it was expensive, and it is lah. I mean, it's I don't know, it ranges from like $100 to $250 per session, and you needed to go for like 5 or 6 sessions. And even though, you know, I'm doing quite well now, to me, like spending, you know, $1,500 or $2,000, you know, seemed quite a lot to me, and I didn't want to be wasting, right? Of course, I think on hindsight that was a wrong mentality, but thankfully, you know, as I did more research on it, I found that my company was really good. I think they provided for any employee who wanted to see a therapist. They will sponsor the first 6 sessions of therapy.
Wow.
No questions asked, anonymous. They also had like a curated list of partnering counselling organizations. So it made it very easy for me. I just chose one and set up a meeting with the therapist. So, you know, many companies already provide some form of assistance through the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP, to see a therapist. So, you know, I'll encourage anyone who's watching the video, check in with a HR, right? Or, you know, whether that's available. Or if you're running an organization or you're in HR, I encourage you, you know, to get on board with the program, because I feel like it's not really been talked about, right? For many of the companies, they provide, you know, GP, they cover, you know, things like that. But when it comes to mental health, it's as important as, you know, your physical health, especially in the backdrop of COVID, when people are working from home. You know, it does affect productivity. So it's a win-win situation for both the employee and employer, right? To get on board with that. I think for me, I do feel a lot, right? Especially for the middle income families, right, who probably are not poor enough to be available for, you know, for the subsidies, but they are having so many financial commitments that, you know, forking out $1,000, $2,000 for therapy might seem quite difficult, right? And of course, I think as I, you know, talk to more friends about seeing therapists, I was asking around like for recommendations. I did realize that the whole issue of social stigma does stick up quite a bit in Singapore, at least, and I think that's something that I really wanted to do here to normalize the idea of mental wellness, and that's something Wiki was very, very passionate about. So I think for us, we just wanted to champion a cause, right? Because often we treat mental illness, which is invisible, you know, a lot less than physical ailments, your cough, your flu. But I think it's time that we take charge of our mental health, we talk more about it, and also put resources behind, you know, to get people to access mental health services.
I just want to talk a little bit about the social stigma part of it, because I think that is one of the major reasons that I hear. So Joyce, in your course of work, you know, has there been instances where, you know, people have actually stopped coming or didn't even want to come to you because they are afraid of, like, you know, their friends or family members knowing about it?
I think maybe if I were to say, maybe 2 decades ago, when I first started in the counselling field, yeah, I think that is true. Sometimes people will think that, if you are going to see a therapist, a counselor, means then you are not okay. Yeah, but I think now in this time and age when mental health is widely spoke about, then I don't think that is exactly that strong where people will think that it is not okay for you to seek counselling help. Just to write on what Gershon shared just now, I think there are a lot of agencies out there that will be able to provide this help right now. So even if you are low income or you are concerned about the finances and stuff like that, I'm sure the agencies, if you were to approach them, they will be happy to help you. And really in the last couple of years, there's quite a number of hotlines, crisis lines that you can actually call, and they are all, pro bono, they are all free, that you can actually tap on. So generally, I think as a society, we are more open for that. Yeah, we are more aware that this is something that, it is important for us to pay attention to. Yes.
Besides all the reasons that Gershon listed, I think this is a personal question because, there's another school of thought that will always be thinking, is my condition actually that bad that would require me to see someone professional? I mean, I say it's personal because actually late last year I came to a point where even the sound of my laptop's fan, when we run our programs, that sound made my heart beat very fast for, I don't know, maybe for a couple of weeks or so. So just now when you say the prolong is 2 weeks, I was a bit like, okay. But I think at that point, I did think, was it time for me to go see someone? There's that school of thought where, maybe, it's like Gershon, you shared, right? You have been a cell group leader for so many years. Can one. But I think, how would I know, right? Because I feel personally that I can get over it. But actually, I never know, do I?
Yep, you will never know. So I guess if you are really thinking or feeling uneasy, you have doubts, it keeps coming back, you're feeling like, am I okay? Then there is a time that you can start talking to someone. It is not good to actually wait for too long. Yeah, because you will just, go deeper into it. Yeah, so each time that you feel that I'm not feeling good, I need to talk to someone about it, then immediately you should seek some form of help.
Okay, so let's move on to talk a little bit deeper about therapy. What is the difference between, we have so many words for it, right? A counsellor, a therapist, a psychologist, and a psychiatrist. What is the difference?
Okay, if I were to put it very layman, easy to understand. Yes. Okay, so between a psychiatrist and a psychologist, the difference would be the medication part. So the psychiatrist is actually a doctor. So they can prescribe medication, but a psychologist will not be able to do that. So typically when you go to a psychologist, what happens is that they are trained using different psychometric tools, assessment tools. So they will use the tools to assess you and to work with you on that.
So it's talking.
Yes. So really for the psychiatrist is on the medication part. So how do you know that you need to go and see a psychiatrist? So basically you feel that, no matter what you do in talk therapy, after you process it with different ones and stuff like that, it is not helping, your situation is not improving, and you need some form of medication. Then that is where you go to a psychiatrist. Then we talk about a therapist and a counselor. So generally for those of us that go to see a counselor, basically what they are looking at is someone that is able to be more aware of what's really going on. They are ready and motivated to do the processing. So usually the counselor will deal with what is happening to the here and now. They will look at what is really happening to them, the situation that they are in, and then they will work with them. But for a therapist, they will look beyond that. So sometimes, some of us, we are, having certain encounters, or maybe, we are going through certain things. It's because of the past that have happened. And we are not really aware of that. So when you see a therapist, they will actually go into the past. So the sessions are usually longer than you see a counselor. Yeah, because they will actually address the deep-seated issue.
So far, when you talk about a counselor and a therapist, and then psychologist and psychiatrist, so how about between a therapist and a psychologist? Is there a marked difference?
I guess if you are looking at deep-seated issues, then you should always see a therapist. Yeah. So if I were to say, if you were to ask, then who should I see first?
Yeah.
Your next question. So I would say that maybe you see a counselor first. So if the counsellor is able to talk to you and then manage the issues, and then technically you will not need to escalate to a psychiatrist. Yeah, but if that is not really helping, you might need to have some medication to work alongside with you. Yeah, then you can have the treatment together.
So, Gershon, you went to see a
Counselor.
okay,
Yeah,
a counselor.
yeah, a
Alright.
counselor. So I went to see a counselor. That was because it was part of the curated list. Of course, there are other options that I could. Yesterday was actually my last session with my therapist, and I must say, it's been a very helpful journey. I feel like, I started at 80, maybe now I'm like 90, 95. Of course, down the road, if I feel like I need help with the last 5 to 10%, I could possibly see a clinical psychologist or a therapist, maybe for my insomnia, right? But I would say, my journey with therapy in the last 6 months has been, it started off painful, but eventually it was, the trajectory was positive from there. It was painful from the start because you had to revisit a lot of the scars, the wounds, but it honestly gets better from there, and I felt good and relief after every session that I talk about it. I think I did quite a lot of things together with my therapist. We didn't just talk about what happened, we talked about the emotions that were attached to each event and situation, and that is part of processing of that grief and pain. And I felt very validated, right, by the therapist, when he told me like, it's okay to feel this way, it's okay to feel triggered, it's normal to feel unmotivated. In fact, he say, between all the patients that I've seen, you're probably one of the better functioning ones, right? So I feel, okay, I'm not that bad, right? Or maybe he just said it to encourage me, but I felt someone understood me, right? And I think that was important. He also made me write down what, Wiki would say to me if she were here today, and also what I would say to Wiki if she was standing in front of me today. And that kind of helped me deal with a part of me that perhaps felt like there were things that, because I was running around doing caregiving in the last days, that I didn't manage to tell her, right? And also some things that I felt like I knew she's going to tell me, to move forward, to not bear the burden so much. But, you keep thinking about it. But sometimes it's just good to write it down and deal with it once and for all. And because he made me write it down, it was, I didn't have to keep ruminating on that point, right? Every time I feel like a bit distressed in the area, I just open up and just read what I've written. And that honestly gave me a lot of comfort. And I think beyond the philosophical, there was also the very practical part. I struggled with insomnia, right? So basically, he helped me with practical advice of like sleeping at 10:30, sleep hygiene issues, like don't bring your phone, into the room, right?
It's tough for many.
Yeah. So now it's a discipline for me. I chuck it in the other room. He asked me to go and exercise in the morning. I was very focused when I started therapy, and maybe that helped, right? I said there were only 2 things I wanted to achieve with him. One is to sleep, and the other is to get back to work 100%. So as a counselor, what he did was to plan with me. He asked me, what are the 10 things you need to do to make you feel like you're fully contributing back at work? So I went to think about it. I wrote down the 10 things, and we planned together. And every time he met me, he would ask me, so how many of the 10 things have you done? So, okay, I've done this too. Oh, this time around I didn't do as much. And it was really a form of accountability. I felt like there was someone who walked with me, right, through this recovery journey. And it really helped me to get back on track. I would say that, in terms of my work, if I was feeling like 50, 70% before, now I'm probably back 90, 95% because of the very structural things that he has helped me go through. And I guess the last practical stuff was, he talked a lot about asking me to reconsider remarrying, right? To learn to love again, just because of, you know, where I am in my stage of life. So things like that, I think it was a conversation that is probably not easy to have with friends or with family, but I think as someone, as an outsider, he could objectively, you know, help me deal with a lot of these issues and walk me through. So I think it was really helpful in the last 6 months, and it prevented me from spiraling further down in that prolonged, you know, symptoms that I was feeling.
I think it sounds like you were just very goal-oriented, you know, and you had that two things that you wanted to achieve. But Joyce, here's a question for you. What if, I mean, for Gershon, it's like a success case, right? You see somebody for 6 months and then you are like, you know, getting there, well on your way to recovery. Is anxiety and depression ever 100% treatable?
Yeah, I guess this is something that you need to really, for a lifetime, really look at maintaining it. So the coping mechanism, like what Gershon have gone through, like some of the things that the counsellor have taught him, he have to kind of like, he has to remember it.
Keep doing it.
Yeah, and keep doing it. Yeah, so that is something that is really very important, because here and there, when all of us, we will face days that are bad days, right? So when we have bad days, then it will come back to us. So things like that we learn in our therapy session would be very helpful. And there was one thing that he also mentioned about journaling. So I think that is a very good way to reflect. Yeah, so in our sessions, most of the time or a lot of times, we get our clients to do that as well. So that will be also an outlet for them to express themselves, to really reflect, you know, what they are thinking. And then when they come back to the session with us, we will also talk a little bit about it. We'll talk deeper into it and do some processing on that. So that itself it will help, yeah.
But when you journal, is there like specific things, that means specific to your situation, and not like, you know, just talk about how you feel in your day?
So it's not like diary.
Yeah.
So it's not a diary that you kind of like write down what exactly happened in that day, but more of like what are the thoughts that are going through, you know, when you are facing certain things, you know, and then after you write it down, then basically really reflect about it. Yeah, and then, you know, talk about it, and then do some processing. Yeah, and then how do we from there continue to walk on, to journey on?
I'm just curious because, again, you know, Gershon's case is a success, you know, but what if I have journeyed with a therapist and somehow it's just not working out? Do I look at changing the therapist, or do I look at asking the therapist, do you have other modes of treatment for me, or what can I do? Yeah.
So you can do both.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So basically, it's really about rapport building, the chemistry between two persons, and really the different stages, because it really depends on who you see, you know, and their mode of therapy. So if let's say you are a very abstract person, then if you go to someone that is very concrete in the way that they work with you, you will find it very, very difficult to work with them. So you need to find the right fitting. So it's okay to change your counsellor. If there is no rapport, there's no chemistry, it's totally fine to do that. But a lot of the therapists or the counsellor, they might be eclectic practitioners, meaning that they can do both, you know, cognitive kind of therapy. They can also do very creative kind of like maybe psychodynamic and things like that. So if they are skilled or trained in doing that, then you can explore the different modes. Yeah.
Feels like I'm asking a lot of questions here, but okay, like for me, if I'm someone that is not too good at being vulnerable, like to strangers, you know, Gershon, you were saying that, you know, you have to like basically relive your entire journey with a stranger. So if there's someone like me that's not too good with being vulnerable, how do I know, you know, because, you know, already when I go and see a therapist, I might be guarded already. And then we talk about getting the right fit. How do I know when it's me and when it's actually the therapist?
I think one way that you can go about doing this is really find out more about the therapist first, or the counsellor first. The other way is really to bring someone along with you.
Oh.
Yeah, so instead of going for the session yourself, maybe the first couple of sessions, you can get someone that you trust, someone that is really close to you, to accompany you for the session. Because typically in our first 2 sessions, we might not go too in depth into the session. It's really rapport building, getting to know each other, looking at some of the intervention objectives that we want to achieve and stuff like that. And a lot of times when, as much as we want to get better, maybe deep down there are certain things that are holding us back, and we may not be as motivated as Gershon is.
Yes.
So for that, we need to encourage ourselves. We need to be secure. So bring someone along would be one helpful way.
Well, that's interesting. I never knew you could bring someone along. Interesting. All right, so actually the whole point of us having this conversation is actually because, Gershon, you have this initiative that you're working with, CSA.
Yeah.
You want to share with us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I guess I can't talk about this initiative without first talking about the person that Wiki is, right? Wiki was a very, very unique person. She was very kind, very big-hearted. She was the kind that if she saw a homeless person, she wouldn't just give the money, right? I remember one time she just went back home, she cooked a meal, and then she brought back down to the homeless person because she said it's winter, right? He needs hot food, right? Not just money. I remember after she got diagnosed, shortly after that, she came upon this Facebook post about this African little boy who is living in Malaysia who needed surgery, and she was asking me, can I give some of my money because we had some insurance payout. So I said, yeah. So I gave her I told her a big amount. Actually, towards the end, I found out from a mutual friend how much she gave in the end. It was basically my very big amount, and she just times 2, right? And she just gave it, and that was her. Like she was always thinking about others, and mental health was probably the thing that she was most passionate about. She was diagnosed when she was in her last semester for clinical psychology for a doctorate. And to be honest, I think at that point in time I was telling her, why don't we stop the studies and let's just go and see the world, let's go and do fun things. And she looked at me and she said, honestly, at this point in time, I know I only have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year max, right? But if I can finish off my doctorate in the next 9 months, if I practice for 1 year, even if I could help one person be better mentally, it would have made my doctorate worth it. It would have made my life purpose worth it. So of course, when she said something like that, I mean, of course, we saw her through the program. Eventually, because of complications, she passed away really quickly. But as a result, mental wellness is also very close to my heart now. And I suppose now that she's not here, I'm trying to do that in her stead, on her behalf. And so when it comes to mental health, I think there are 2 things that we must do, right? Firstly, we want to normalize the whole idea of like seeing a therapist. And you know what Joyce shared is very encouraging for me, right? Because that conversation has begun to change, right, in recent years, and it's becoming better. But of course, we need to continue working on it. We need to continue talking about it, which is why I'm doing this whole series. So if someone like me, can go for therapy, anybody can, right? And anyone should if you are feeling not okay. And then the second thing that we want to do is really to put resources to better mental health, wellness in our community. We want to help those who can't afford therapy because of financial reasons. Obviously, I think now there are a lot of agencies that are out there that can help. But failing which and really finances are the only thing that is stopping you. I feel like if we can go about helping you, we should. So Vicky and I, we don't come from well-to-do families, right? We know what it's like to be poor. In fact, for 2 years after I graduated, my bank account was still like $1,000 each month, because a lot of expenses, I had to pay back loans and stuff. So, forking out $2,000 to see a therapist can be quite a challenge, right? But now that, I'm financially more well-to-do, I feel like it's a good time, right, to give back to society. More than that, I really just want to do it on behalf of Wiki, in memory of Wiki. So I don't just want to talk about it, I want to put funding behind it. So we are launching an initiative with City Harvest Community Services Association, CSCSA, in collaboration with an external professional counselling centre to sponsor church members to go for therapy. And I think for now in the pilot project, what we are hoping to do is to send at least 10 to 15 people through the program. We will sponsor the first 5 sessions of therapy. We will give them $120 voucher each session. So every person $600 in assistance to see a therapist for at least 5 times. You can continue your journey with him or her after that, right? But what's important is that we are taking small steps to get you on track, right? To get help. So I think at the end of the day, if you need help and finances are the only thing that's stopping you from seeing a therapist, just know that CSCSA is here to help.
One of the things you mentioned in the last interview was how much Wiki has impacted you, your life, your perspective, and I think it's so evident in this initiative that you have going on. I think we'll be able to find out more from CSCSA. But before we end this interview, I just want to ask Joyce, you've been a counsellor for many years. What do you think is something that we can do as a society, as a community, to do more for mental wellness?
I think first we need to be open, to start the conversation. So I think this initiative that Gershon is looking at is really a very good initiative. Sometimes, although it is out there, but people don't really talk about it. The services are out there, but people do not talk about it. So naturally, they will not know where exactly to go to. So as a society, if we are able to be more open in bringing up this topic, and it's okay to talk about it, I think that will be a very good start.
Yeah, and I think this whole series of conversations that we're having with Gershon, I think hopefully it is a good start, to get people talking, to get people acknowledging, like Gershon, you've said many times that it's okay to not be okay, so hopefully this helps everybody. And to all of you watching, I hope that after watching this, you get a little bit more information about what therapy is all about, and check out CSA's website if you need any help. So thank you so much, Joyce and Gershon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.